Have you ever heard the name of a historical figure and it sounded familiar, but you didn't know who said person really was or what they did? Well, if that's the case, you've come to the right place. I'm going to try and explain the lives of historical figures in a fun and brief yet educative manner. And today we are going to look at Charlemagne. Charles the Great, or derived from French Charlemagne, was born in year 748, most likely in Aachen in modern-day Germany. He was the son of Pepin the Short, who was the king of the Franks, which always helps, I guess. So naturally, after his father's death in 768, Charlemagne became king. But it was not really a smooth sailing. Charlemagne had a younger brother called Carloman, who also became king. Most of the facts we have access to suggest that the brothers were not getting along very well. Carloman tried to undermine Charlemagne's position multiple times, and then one day Carloman's nose started bleeding and he died at age 20. Allegedly he died of natural causes, but it raises suspicion since his death came in very handy for Charlemagne. I should point out that most of what we know about Charlemagne was written by his personal biographer called Einhard, with whom he was very close, so there is a high chance some of the stuff could be made to seem more glorious than it actually was. But let's go with what we have. So, Carloman died of a severe nosebleed. Now that Charlemagne was the only king of the Franks, he could focus on expanding his soon-to-be empire. He started with the regions of Lombardy, he then conquered the regions of southern Italy while protecting the Papal States, and also northern Spain in the area of the Pyrenees Mountains all the way to Barcelona, with some other regions along the way. The lands in Spain were previously controlled by the Muslims of the Umayyad Caliphate, and Charlemagne was a very pious man, so Christianization started. In general, Christianization was one of the main motives of Charlemagne's reign. The biggest enemy of Charlemagne, however, were the Saxons. It took him roughly 30 years to Christianize them. Many of them were forcibly baptized, but those were the lucky ones. In 782, Charlemagne ordered to kill 4,500 Saxons in an event which we know as the Massacre of Verdun. Turns out being the enemy of somebody named the Great is not so great after all. Charlemagne kept fighting against the Saxons all the way until 804, and he managed to conquer their lands, but not all of the people accepted him as the ruler and they often rebelled. He also managed to conquer the lands of Bavaria, Bohemia, Moravia, modern-day Austria and Croatia. He then faced the Avars, who were a nomadic tribe settled in modern-day Hungary. Charlemagne managed to defeat them and their territories got integrated into his realm. This huge entity became known in history as the Carolingian Empire. And by now it really was an empire. In 799 Pope Leo III had some problems caused by his enemies and he had to flee from Rome to ask for Charlemagne's help, which came and the Pope was put back in his place. As a sign of gratitude, on 25th of December 800, the Pope coronated Charlemagne as an emperor. This was a very sneaky move from the Pope, who after he had to shamefully ask for somebody's help to save his position, now wanted to show that he was above the emperor because he coronated him. In fact, it remains unclear whether Charlemagne even knew that the coronation was going to take place. Some sources even state that he was surprised or outright ambushed during the Christmas Day Mass and somewhat unwillingly coronated. Anyhow, he was now the first emperor of the West after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Nothing really changed in reality, but this title gave him a bit more prestige. Some people like to call Charlemagne the first Holy Roman Emperor, and I understand where they are coming from because the eastern part of his empire, the East Francia, later developed into the Holy Roman Empire, but in my opinion Charlemagne was not the Holy Roman Emperor since the Holy Roman Empire didn't even exist back then. He was crowned as a Roman Emperor, not the Holy Roman Emperor. That's why I personally disagree with this quote-unquote general knowledge. Governing such a large mass of land must have been very difficult, but Charlemagne handled it surprisingly well. He divided it into several smaller parts, called marches and duchies, and appointed trusted people to govern them for him. His sons also ruled together with him as sub-kings. During his reign, Charlemagne heavily focused on education. This became known as the Carolingian Renaissance. Different types of arts were spread, many reforms were put into practice, and people were taught how to read and write. Charlemagne himself wanted to learn these things, and he also wanted his children and grandchildren to be well educated. A new scripture was developed called the Carolingian Minuscule, which for the first time started differentiating between capital and lowercase letters. It remains unknown whether Charlemagne himself fully learned how to read and write, but this here is supposed to be his signature, so you can be the judge. To be honest, it still looks better than mine, and yes, I can read and write. He is now known as the father of Europe, who once undoubtedly was a great military leader, a fierce enemy, and he managed to substantially spread the Christian faith throughout Europe. He died in January 814 at the respectable age of 72.